Hey guys, it's Mike here, and in this video I'm going to be reviewing Deadpool 2, the sequel to the highly successful Deadpool which came out in 2016. Deadpool 2 follows Wade Wilson, aka Deadpool, as he is continuing his comedic crusade of carnage against organized crime. However, after a personal tragedy, Wade Wilson connects with the X-Men and joins them as a trainee. This is when Wade meets Fire Fist, a troubled mutant who is on the verge of going the wrong way. And to make matters worse, Cable, a mutant from the future, has traveled back in time to kill him. So it's up to Deadpool and his new team known as the X-Force to save Fire Fist from Cable and himself. Now, I really like the original Deadpool movie. It was one of those movies that I was unsure of before going in, but once I saw it, it was a blast. It's a great mix of comedy, action, and played around with the superhero genre in a fun way while using that R rating to its benefit. The movie was a passion project for Ryan Reynolds, who had played this character before but in a bastardized version which appeared in the awful X-Men Origins Wolverine. And given how bad that movie was and how little the Fox executives seemed to care for the Deadpool character, it's really amazing that this movie got made and managed to be as successful as it was. However, going into Deadpool 2, after the first film's director Tim Miller left production and we heard about negative pre-screenings and reshoots, this movie seemed like it could falter and not really live up to the prior film. However, upon seeing this, I'd have to say that it has a lot of what made the first one great. Deadpool 2 is a fun action comedy that has mile-a-minute jokes and awesome action set pieces. And the set pieces definitely make sense given that director David Leitch was one of the directors behind John Wick and has been a stunt coordinator for years. And with this movie, they definitely had a bigger budget to show off these action sequences, with perhaps my favorite being a lengthy chase sequence around the second act of the film. And Deadpool 2 definitely has more of most things than Deadpool 1 had. There's more action, the movie is longer, and it seems like there's even more jokes flying at the audiences faster than ever. However, as the old saying goes, bigger isn't always better, and sometimes less is more. But I'll get more into that later. For now, let's talk about the characters. Of course, Ryan Reynolds returns to play the titular Deadpool once again, and like in the first one, he gives a great and hilarious performance. Just like in the first one, you can tell he loves playing this character and really embodies him, constantly breaking the fourth wall to make fun of the situation, the fact they're in a movie, and to wink at the audience. And the humor in this film can range from poking fun at comic book movies to obscure references to movies and comics that may not hit for more casual audience members. However, this movie also takes the time to try and develop Wade more as a person, giving him dramatic scenes, showing how he deals with something that happened earlier in the movie, and his interaction with other characters. And his interactions with different members of the X-Men, X-Force, and Cable are great, and really hilarious at times. However, the relationship between Deadpool and Russell, also known as Fire Fist, played by Julian Dennison, is where much of the heart of the film comes from. Russell is a character who, due to his past, is on the verge of going down a very dark path. However, Deadpool doesn't believe him to be too far gone, and the two form a friendship. And I think Dennison does a solid job here as the character. I like the backstory he's given in the film and what we're told of his future, and the way the real threat of this film is developed is more interesting than your typical superhero film. However, this film could have perhaps focused on some of it a little longer. Josh Brolin also plays Nathan Summers, aka Cable, in this movie, who is a bionic super soldier from a dark future who has come back in time on a mission to prevent events both personal and wide-reaching from happening in the future. Brolin also played Thanos in Avengers Infinity War and gives a great performance here as well. For a little while, I was kind of getting tired of Brolin being in every movie I would go see. However, he's really great at what he does, and the film pokes a lot of fun at his portrayal of Thanos as well as his character in general. And as for the character himself, sometimes his appearances, such as his introduction, feel a bit disjointed from the rest of the film, and they barely get into his his family, mutation, and backstory, but when he's on screen interacting with the rest, he's one of the best parts of the movie. Now the plot, especially with his character, is very much like Terminator 2, and they do at least make jokes to this effect during the movie. The X-Force is also fun when they're finally on screen, with some interesting members of the team, including some hilarious cameos. However, I feel like this concept and a number of these characters are pretty much wasted in the movie. Going into the movie, I was excited for the prospect of seeing Deadpool lead this team, and it's something that was underwhelming and served mainly as a punchline. Domino, played by Zazie Beetz, is the standout new character of the group, and gets the most screen time of the new members. Her powers are luck-based, and the movie does a good job of showing this off cinematically, all the while Deadpool doesn't believe that they really exist. Her costume, along with many of the other new characters, feels a little lazy, and could have been much more like the comics, especially in a movie where Deadpool looks like he came straight out of one, but that's been an issue with the Fox X-Men property since day one. Now speaking of the X-Men, they're even more prominently featured in this film, as Deadpool joins their team. We see Colossus again, who is a lot of fun in this movie, as well as Negasonic Teenage Warhead, who on the other side of the coin is barely in the movie. They also introduce a new character named Yukio, however she's hardly in the film too, but when these characters show up they can be a lot of fun. And of course Vanessa, played by Morena Baccarin, also returns in this movie. She was a big part of the first film, and much of the story followed Wade Wilson as he tried to come back to her after his mutation and then has to save her from Ajax, also known as Francis. But her character is used in a very different way in this film, and some decisions are made with her character that I don't think I particularly liked, and I think may be a polarizing aspect of the film for audience members. And there's also a lot of funny cameos in this movie. I won't get into much detail here, but they range from big characters in the movie to blink and you miss it members of the crowd or random people on the street. And one of the best moments of the film is a huge cameo which happens earlier on. Of course, Stan Lee has his cameo of sorts here too, but it's not your traditional cameo, so keep an eye out for that. And also, like the first movie, Deadpool 2 also has an awesome opening credit sequence, which is very much in the vein of James Bond movies. So I feel that fans of those films and movie lovers in general will really enjoy it. And the ending credits also have some of the best mid-credit sequences I've ever seen in the movie, with some interesting ramifications for this movie and the future, so make sure to stick around for those. Although there's nothing really at the very end, so you can leave before that. As far as the negatives, as I said before, the film in many ways does too much. There's too many characters, at times too much self-referential humor, and some of the elements of the film feel underdeveloped or wasted as a result. Also, the plot itself, as I mentioned, feels a bit recycled, as do a number of sequences which feel copy and pasted from the first movie. Obviously, this is a sequel, so some of that is to be expected, but it felt like they were in the movie just because they were in the first one, so let's do it again. Also, I feel like some of the self-referential humor here was an attempt to cover for the screenwriting. Like Deadpool would point out how cliche a storyline or trope was, but simply pointing that out doesn't really fix the fact that the movie still utilizes many of them and hits some of those sequel pitfalls. And additionally, even though I like the concept and have loved the X-Men since I was a kid, reading the comics, playing the video games, and of course watching the cartoons, sometimes their inclusions felt a little too shoehorned in. We're watching a Deadpool movie, but the X-Men, mutants, and those themes continue to work their way in here and make this feel less self-contained and more like a piece in the X-Men universe. We even get a cameo from a big X-Men character who in concept I like and was far more accurate in depiction, but I don't really like in execution, particularly because he was entirely CGI, and it was CG which didn't look quite as good as Colossus, who I'm also not entirely sure I like being fully CGI either. So ultimately, Deadpool 2 is a fun action movie that, much like its predecessor, pokes fun at the superhero genre that has taken the world by storm and makes for a great time at the movies. However, it delves a little bit too much into excess, and as a result loses focus at times, and some of its elements aren't as well utilized as they could have been. As a result, I don't think it's quite as good as the original, but I would still recommend seeing it in theaters and buying it on Blu-ray. I'm going to give Deadpool 2 an 8 out of 10. So did you guys see Deadpool 2, and if so, did you like it? Also, which movie do you prefer, this or the original? Also, what score would you give this movie? And what would you like to see in a possible future Deadpool 3 movie? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you like this video and you want to see more, then make sure to stick around, because there's a lot more to come in the future. Make sure to subscribe to this channel and enable notifications so you could see all of my content right away when it comes out.
Yeah, and you better subscribe for the unending regenerating gains of the Deadpool.